Well, okay, I guess we are live. Can you hear me
Can you
okay?
shut the door?
Okay. Well, we're just going to go for it. All right. So, first step is to log into your in the intranet and getting to your dashboard. So once you go to the dashboard and you see your control panel, the next step is going to your My Transactions. And this is where you'll see all your loops. I'm going to go to my agent login really quick. All right. And I like to have, they always do sort by, I like to have it by the grid. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new loop. And this is it's really important. I know for listings, you can always have it set as the address of the house. And I know for buyers, it's typically the client, they haven't picked a house yet, but you've already started buyer paperwork, or you should have started buyer paperwork. And a lot of the times you don't know which address it's going to be. So the main point is for buyers, make sure you change the address once they do go under contract. And in your loop, and I can show you how to do that. But for now, we're going to act like we have a new listing, and I'll go ahead and use let's just do 123 test loop drive. We're in Georgetown. Let's do 78626. And then you can always put the client name afterwards if you want to make sure the client name is on there. Create the loop, and this is where we've got your loop created. If you ever need to change the name, you can go up here and just click on it, and then that makes it editable up here. So this is where if you have a buyer and they go under contract, this is where you can change the address. It's really important before you submit your loop to compliance to have it under as an address, because that's what we go off of for compliance. So the next step is once you create your loop to make sure you add your people. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you have your people section, this red tab, add person. I'll go ahead and add my name as the client. You can do PJ Wright. Sometimes if your people are already in here, you've done transactions with them before, they will pull up and make sure that you select the role that they will be. Whether they're the buyer, the seller, maybe you have an admin or transaction coordinator, you can always add to your loops as well. And if, on the side note for compliance, if you do have a transaction coordinator as some kind of admin that's helping you in your loop, and you want them to be copied on any messages from the compliance department to you, like whenever your loop gets kicked back or everything looks good and you want to be copied, make sure that they're in the file, because that's the only way that we know that they're your admin. So I'll be the seller for this example. You can fill in all this information with their phone number, their address. It's nice if you do fill it all in, because it'll auto-populate in all of the forms that you produce, like your listing agreement, all of that information. It'll add it automatically, and we'll see that. I'm gonna leave it blank for now so you see what I'm talking about. Go ahead and add person.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
So I'm on a team, and I always include my team leader.
Yeah.
But on the contract, it doesn't pull her information in as licensed supervisor.
Okay.
Is there a role I can add her in that does that?
I don't think there is on Dotloop, but I can show you how you can do you have your templates set up at all? I can show you how you can pre-fill your templates. So whenever you do pull any kind of contracts,
Okay.
any even your listing agreement, and you don't want to pre-fill the brokerage information every time, I can show you how to do that.
That would be lovely.
Yeah, and it makes the process faster. Okay, so now we've added our people. I'm just gonna add myself for now, and then let's see. If you want, I can actually add one of y'all to be my agent. Do you want to do that?
Amy Edwards.
That's a good email for you.
Amy, AMI, at poppytowntx.com.
Perfect. So Amy will be my agent, my listing agent. Perfect. So we're gonna go ahead and add our forms. So it's nice to have it under, go to templates, and you're gonna go to listing. Oh, this mouse is strange. Set of listing forms. And always add your checklist, I recommend. And then you can do your residential listing agreements, your wire fraud notice, really anything that you know will be necessary, seller's disclosure. If you know that we're, like, say we're signing a listing agreement today, but we're not going to go on the market until, next week, go ahead and add this limited exposure form. Does anybody have questions about that form or what it's for? So per the listing agreement, you're required to put your client in MLS 5 days after that, within 5 days of them signing the agreement. If it's any time after that, you need this form. And will have a specific date of when they're actually going to go on MLS. So let's say that we're going to go on MLS on an appropriate time. We need our IABS, and go ahead and copy those. I always like my checklist on top. If I can get it there. Okay, so this is where you can see all the forms. Whenever you click on a form, it's going to automatically ask you to autofill. And this is where that information comes up where you've already pre-filled your people. And you can go ahead and add the address, 123 Test Road.
Why didn't it autofill there?
It doesn't at the beginning, but when you do it once, it'll do it every
Okay.
other time.
Oh, so I was doing something wrong because it wasn't filling.
Yeah. 66 Williamson. If you know that what your commission rate's going to be, all of this stuff, typically I don't fill this in because sometimes it's different per client. Sometimes you do 5% instead of 6 or whatever the case is. I just do the basic information and then I'm going to go ahead and autofill.
So you don't put in all the expiration dates and all that?
I typically don't because sometimes it ranges. Unless you know up front what they're going to be, you can. And
Hi, sorry.
It's okay.
11:30 on the calendar.
Oh,
It
okay.
does.
It did?
And I sent Mary a message yesterday saying that because she had sent an email saying it was 11 and it's on the calendar. It says 11:30.
Okay. Sorry about that. No, it's
Yeah, I'm
okay.
just gonna squeeze it.
Yeah, come in. Here is, I have a step by step of what we're going.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. And we're really not that far along,
Okay.
so you're fine.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So this, you can see how it fills the address, and make sure you fill in like all the information that's required, and you, as far as lot, this is where you can fill in if it's a HOA and so forth. That's the main thing of why it's important. If you want to autofill, it'll fill in a lot of the information. It'll make it faster. I don't want to share it. So the next thing really is labeling your folders if possible, which is important and nice. So this is our
That's
listing
where I
folder.
fall.
Yeah, and it's okay if you don't, and I'll show you where it's really important where you label them, but this really does help on the compliance side, what we're looking at. I mean, we can look at an overview. If we see that there's listing agreement, we understand that this is probably your listing folder. It really is nice and beneficial to everybody if you can keep your listing documents separate from your contract documents once you do go under contract.
So you can have multiple folders?
You can have multiple folders, absolutely.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yep, and this is where you would add a folder, and it creates like a whole new dashboard of what you saw originally, and this is where you can we can make this our contract folder.
And then how do you move items into the folder?
So I will say Dotloop has come a long way. If you ever, so for templates, which I know you just came in, but you can add stuff this way. So we just did our listing. So go to templates, and then you're gonna go to, typically as a listing agent, the buyer's agent would typically give you your contract, right? They'd submit the contract, but you can still, I wonder if you can still see the 1 to 4 family in here.
So
I think you
what
can.
I was thinking was
Mhm.
on that screen now that you have 2 folders, the
Mhm.
documents that are already there, like how do you move them from folder to folder?
You just click and drag.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and like that's something that Dotloop didn't always have, which I love now, because if
Yes.
you this needs to go here, this needs to go here, you can click and drag in between folders really easily now.
And is there a way to delete a document?
No.
Or you can only
No.
archive it?
You can only archive, and that's really for everybody's best interest. Like there's many times where I was trying to download something, and this is like per document, there's lots of options that you can do. You can open, rename it, make a copy, and under make a copy, you can actually move it to another loop all entirely, a whole other file now. So if you wanted to make a copy. Like say you have a client that you're doing listing for, or a buyer is even a better example. If you have a buyer and they're buying multiple properties, and you want to just copy their buyer agreement to another folder for the other property that they're buying, you can
That's awesome.
copy as download, especially for like wire fraud, IBS, where it's like it's never really going to change once you have it signed. It's good. So you can change it to a different loop, and you can search for the loop that you want to put in, and it automatically copies it.
That's
It doesn't
awesome.
move it; it just makes a copy for you into this
Perfect.
other loop.
That was worth the class right there.
Yeah.
I'm
And
done.
then-
I can leave.
Yeah.
So something else I learned in
Mhm.
because I get frustrated with not being able to delete
Yeah.
files, and like I've got, we're going back and forth on, whatever, or I just accidentally added two of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually drag one of the things down and put it on top of the other and replace it. So
Yes.
if you've got two of the same,
Okay.
you
Yeah.
can drag it and just make sure you're replacing the one you want to replace.
Right.
Yeah.
So say these documents are saying, this is what she's talking about. If you put it over one another, it's going to ask you, you're about to replace this one with this. Is that what you want to do?
Okay.
And for this case, we don't want to. As far as deleting, this is the only option that you do have. I don't know why is archive. Once it's gone, it's actually never really gone, because then you can see show archived, and you can always go back and unarchive
Okay.
if you did it on accident. I do that all the time on accident when I'm trying to download something
Me too.
and I click the wrong thing,
Okay.
which is why I love that nothing is ever truly deleted.
Right. Thank you for sharing that, because
Yeah.
there are several times where I go to add a template or a
Mhm.
document, and I think it's what I'm looking for, and then
Yeah.
it adds, and I'm like, oh, this is not what I want, because I can't tell by the name.
Yes,
Mhm.
and
I
I
don't know all of them.
totally understand.
And
And
have a random thing.
Yes.
there.
yeah, I totally understand. And the best thing that you can do, and like for that, whenever you do archive something and you submit it to compliance, we only see what you see. So we have the option to look at your archived, but we never do, because in our eyes, if you've deleted it, we trust that you know what you're doing and you don't want us to look at it.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, the archive, you can always go back and look at what you've archived and pull stuff out of it, but it's safe. I mean, it keeps it clean if you archive stuff that isn't necessary or pertinent to your file. Let's see. We know how to add a document. You know how to create a new folder. Again, it's nice. I can go ahead and create. Let's create a new loop for buyer, so you guys can see. Let's do 512
Main Street.
Main. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make it too hard.
Yeah. Sometimes I do these test names, and there's actually like street names.
I bet.
Like 512
Yeah.
Main
Yeah.
Street. All right. So this could be our buyer folder. Say I'm a buyer as well. Sorry, this mouse is super sensitive. Let's do this is a property that I'm actually going to be purchasing. So this is my contract folder. It's the same thing. Templates. Here's your buyer contract forms. Here's your checklist, which I always recommend putting in. And then any kind of buyer, any document or paperwork that you would need for your transaction. If you ever have questions, there's a lot of great information under risk management. Here's our checklists and guidelines. It has like checklists in here. It also has our W-9. If you have a referral or you're sending out something, we have a new home builder checklist. Is anybody confused about the new home builder checklist and when you would need that? So
I don't know when you would need it.
So whenever you have most of the times it's buyers who are buying a new construction property and the contract form is on a new construction, like the builder's form, that's when you would use this checklist. It's whenever, even if it's a new home, a new construction home, but it's on a Texas promulgated form, like a TAR form or a TREC form, you'd still use the contract checklist. It's only when it's on the builder's form, like Pulte or Coventry, it's on their actual contract form, is when you'd use the new home builder contract checklist. It's a lot shorter because they cover a lot of their stuff on their end, so there's less paperwork, truthfully. And So the next thing we can go back to, let's go back to our listing loop.
One of the things that has been helpful for me on the IABS, because
Mm-hmm.
you have to, so you don't have to fill it out every time.
Yeah.
I did a PDF of my IABS and I saved it in my, with all our information on it, in my in my file on here.
Okay.
I don't even know where I have it. Is it my inbox or personal or whatever? There's
Yes.
a folder.
So I was going to show you guys that next as to kind of how you can set up your templates, which can be, and this is templates for your contracts. If you do a lot of buyers, you can fill out like the page 9 with your broker information, how you can set up your listing agreement, your buyer agreement, all that stuff can be pre-filled. So if you want to go, if you go up top to your templates, you're going to go under personal, and you can add, let's see, you can add a new folder. And this is going to be my listing. Let's say like this is going to be my listing documents. Create folder. Oh, if I can spell documents right. Create folder. So under listing documents, we go to templates, and this is where you could go to back to the seller listing forms. And I want my listing agreement, my checklist, my wire fraud. Let's do our IBS. I apologize. And let's do seller's disclosure. Well, let's just do it the ones that we know we have to pre-fill. So let's just say we'll copy those over. And this is where you can, let's go to our listing agreement. We know that the brokerage is always going to say the same, right? Keller Williams Realty. Put our new address in here. You can put your phone number. Now y'all have my phone number. And so forth in your email. So just to show you, we'll save that really quickly. You can autofill any information that you want that you know will never change, like the brokerage information, or on the IBS, your licensing information.
Let me ask you this, since our
Mhm.
address just recently changed, so if you
Mhm.
created this
Mm-hmm.
and then you need to go back in and edit it under
Mhm.
your template,
Yeah.
then you can just do it in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's go ahead and save, and I'll show you where this is really helpful. So let's go back to, like, anytime you need to change anything, it'll just be under your templates, and then now it's your listing documents. So just like you see all the templates here,
Nice.
so you're going to go back to your loop. Let's go back to our listing loop. And I want to add my new listing agreement with my stuff pre-filled. So I'm going to go to my listing documents instead of seller contract, seller listing forms. And here's all my stuff. So I'm going to copy that. And now you'll see that it's going to be pre-filled with my information already. And you can add, it's always going to ask if you want to fill in your client's information too. Let's just go ahead and X out of this for now. But you can see that our information's already filled in. Okay?
I'm sorry, can you do that one more time? Show me
Yeah.
how you pulled in.
So, this is such a strange mouse. Sorry. Okay, so we're gonna go back to our templates up here at the top.
Well, I guess if you create a template, so now I
Mhm.
guess if you're creating a new loop, you
Yeah.
pull in the template?
Yep, so you're gonna add a new folder like you would. Let's say this is a new listing. Go to our templates. Here's our listing documents. This is the folder that we created with our pre-filled stuff.
Okay.
And then this is all of our documents with all of our information pre-filled.
And you have to select them all?
And you just select
Okay.
them all, or you can select all. You can select just
Just what you
one.
need. Okay.
And it'll tell you how many you have selected out of that folder, that number
Okay.
right there.
Okay.
Okay? The next thing that's really, really, really important is to make sure that your statuses are correct. And I know sounds silly up here, but it's really important to have all this information correct because this is what compliance goes off of. So this is going to be our listing. This is a listing for sale. And then you need to select the status that you're currently in, whether it's pre-listing, it's active listing, you're under contract, or you're sold. And just like you would in MLS, change the status. Try to remember, like when you change the status in MLS, change the status in .loop. So let's say that we're in active listing now, we're now in MLS. That's all that's needed at that point. You can always view details and get there's more information that you can put in here. This is all that pre-filled information that you could do at the beginning that you have an option to do, or you can change the address name. The really, really important part is, say that my listing has now gone under contract. It's really important that you change it to under contract, or else compliance will not see you. Whenever we pull our lists every day to start going through and doing compliance review, we only look under these certain filters, which is under contract or for leases, and that's it. So if you're putting it under anything else, it's not going to pull up on our list. So that's a lot of times we're like, I've submitted my loop, and I'm ready for my DA, and why haven't you reviewed? I've submitted this a while ago, but you guys haven't reviewed it. It's like, well, you need to change your status because we don't see you otherwise.
So would you see, say, we had set a closing date of October 15th,
Mhm.
and then it got moved to October 23rd, or even the other way.
Yeah.
If we change it in there, do y'all get any kind of notice, or you?
It moves you up on the list.
Okay.
So depending on, we sort our files by the closing date, which is why it's so important not to just only change it under contract date. We don't really care so much about the price. Sometimes it's good to put that in there, but add your closing date, because that's what we review contracts based on the closing date. We obviously want to get the ones that are closing sooner done sooner, and so forth. So if anything changes with your closing date, like there's an amendment and you have to extend, or we're actually closing early, even though the contract says October 15th, but it's cash, so we're closing on the 10th instead. We need to know that so we can get to you. Because what we see is, they're closing on the 15th, I'm going to take care of the files that are actually closing on the 10th, kind of a thing. So let's say that we're closing on October 5th, and I'm ready to actually submit everything for review. This is just an empty folder, so this is one of the things like, it's just an empty folder, I don't really need this, let's go ahead and archive this folder to make my loop cleaner. And then you're going to submit for review up here. Once you submit for review, this is where it's really important to make sure that you're labeling these folders correctly, because whenever you say you labeled your listing, your contract folder as a listing, there's going to be different, it'll label it set differently on our compliance side. So it's important to label your contract folder as a contract folder and your listing folder as a listing folder. And if there are any kind of notes that you need us to know, like there's a new survey has been ordered, we're just waiting for it to come in, or the reason why there's only one seller on the contract but there's two in the tax records is because the husband has passed away and he's no longer here. Like, that kind of information is super helpful for us, because what's going to happen is, if we don't know that information, we're going to review your folder and ask you that question. Why do you have only one seller on your form when there's two people on the tax records? That kind of a thing. So any kind of information that you can give us up front that helps us better understand your situation is super beneficial. So go ahead and click submit, and you're going to see the status change to compliance review. If you see the status, that means that you're in the line to be reviewed. The next status that you would see is either attention not compliant, agent not compliant, which means we're kicking your file back for something, and we'll always put it in the loop. I try and give you a list so it's easier to follow, and Mary does too. So instead of it just being like, this is, your file's wrong, we try and tell you what's missing or what you guys need to make it a compliant folder. And then once I wonder if I can actually, let's see, just for this sake, I'm going to go to my admin login and pull up 123 test so you guys can see. Okay, I'm in compliance now, and I'm actually looking at this file. I'm missing a lot of stuff in this file, so this is a very non-compliant file because nothing is completed. So I would say, hey, hey Amy, since you're my agent, this file is not compliant and this is what we need. And then I'm going to change your status to, see, this is all the statuses that you guys don't have this option, but you would go under, let's see if I can get it to do it. Come on. This one. And I would change your contract and your listing folder are not compliant. So I'm going to change both of them to this. And then as soon as I do that, it's going to kick it back to the agent. So now we can see in my loop, in my actual agent loop, I'm not compliant. And I'm going to go up here and say, oh wow, I have a lot of stuff I need to get to this compliance person. And then once I'm ready to actually resubmit and have a review it again, and hopefully I'm able to check everything off my checklist and it's compliant, I'm going to go ahead and submit for review again. And you're going to click your boxes and say, if you want to, hey, I got everything in, let me know if there's anything else, or whatever you want to say. If there's any other pertinent information that you feel like we need to know. Or hey, the closing actually changed and we're not closing on the 10th, and you submit it. And what's going to happen, it's going to say agent resubmit. And then we know as compliance, you pop back up in our list and you pop up at the top based on your closing date. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure we changed it to the 10th, and that's why it's so important to make sure your statuses are correct, your closing date is correct and always up to date, because it makes a huge difference on when your client or your folder is going to be reviewed for compliance. Do you guys have any questions about that?
Not about that.
Okay. Do you have any questions about something else?
I don't know when you're gonna bring it up, but
Yeah.
we've noticed that the loops don't, the color of the loop does not
Go
accurately portray where it is in the loop.
Yeah.
So what is,
Why
like
is
this
that?
one is closed and nothing I can do makes it
Yes,
full circle
full.
or blank.
And I
Drives me
know
nuts.
that's such a visual thing with dot
Yes.
loop. I'm not, and I know it drives me nuts. 'Cause I'm like,
Yeah.
why am I not a full circle?
Is that the?
And I have everything in there.
Yeah.
Because I really understand, and we don't look at that at all.
But we do.
I know.
But
and
do we know why it
I
doesn't?
don't know
Okay.
why.
Okay.
To be honest with
Well,
you.
then I don't feel so bad, but it
Yeah.
still makes
Yeah.
me crazy.
Yes, and I would honestly, I would call dot loop
Okay.
themselves and say like, what is up with my half full loop,
Yeah.
and why is it only half
So you
full?
can-
This one
Half
isn't
full.
finished and it's got this
I know.
beautiful red
I-
circle, and this one's done and it's got a half
When you're
red
working
circle.
on multiple, it
It's
would
such
be
a
nice.
visual.
Yeah.
I
it'd
totally
be- yeah.
understand. I know.
Is there somewhere in there, since that visual doesn't
Mhm.
seem to be working, is there somewhere else that you can go and look at
It
that kind of
differently?
just gives you a summary of something versus going into each loop to see where you are with something?
Yeah, I will say that I always like to have mine in this view, the list view versus the grid view, because I like to see the full address and everything. This number up here is if you have any messages or if there's been activity. That's what that is.
How did you
Now, does
change
the
the date?
visual there, does the red loop thing there work
No.
on
I'm
that?
not sure because I know the
No,
number
If
is
I do it
based
list
on
view, it will-
notifications.
It's still doing it?
Yeah, and if you ever want to check, like if you have admins and you want to check what they've been doing, you can always check the activity log. Each loop will always have an activity log.
Yeah, see, I like that one better too.
How did you go to the list view?
Yeah,
I mean, the icon view.
yeah. So you can, it's up in the top right here. So you can either switch to the grid view or switch to the list view. And then if you ever want to sort by, this is why another reason why it's really important to have your statuses and stuff updated or correct, is you can always sort your list of files by address, by last updated, MLS number, purchase price, closing date, which is what we do, or submitted to review date. And you can check and see, see where everything is at a higher glance. That's probably the best way to do it. Like if closing date is what we go off of for compliance, it's another way for agents to see like, what do I have closing soon?
Mhm.
What do I need to make sure is submitted to compliance? That kind of a thing. Or list date, for your listings. You can also change your filters. This is what we were talking about
Wait, where
earlier.
did you get that?
Yeah, so right up here
Okay.
at the top, you've got your grid view. You can sort by, your activity log, and then your filters.
Okay.
You can change your filter by you only want to see stuff that says listing for sale, or your active listings, your under contract files, that your sold files. That's why it's so important to make sure that
Maybe
everything
that's
is
what we
done
need to do.
accurately.
So it only
And you
shows
can
what's
hide the
current.
archived stuff.
Yeah, you can.
Yep, you can see the
I finally
archive.
figured that out.
Yeah, and you can archive a whole file by just changing the status to like if it's listing for sale, you can change it to archive or terminated, withdrawn, anything like that, and you can always search for it later. It's never really ever gone. So, and you can always clear all your filters as well, and then filter. Let's see. Sometimes I don't always go by this word for word. So, do y'all have any questions? Any other questions? I mean, anything else that I can help you guys with?
One thing that I've noticed is when you're in the details part of the folder and you're putting in all the final information and you click submit to green sheet from within .loop, it's just there forever.
Yeah, I highly recommend not creating your green sheets that way.
Okay.
It doesn't. They don't talk well to each other. And it's just like whenever you go into .loop, I always highly recommend going into .loop through your intranet, not just going to .loop.com. It's just a lot more stable platform, and it's more secure in my opinion. Just like for your green sheets, I always recommend if you're wanting to create a new green sheet, go to your home, and then go to technology, and then green sheets here. To me, it always works a lot faster, and it's just a lot more stable in my opinion.
I had clicked on that several times and it just sat there, and I gave up on it, and I thought, well, maybe it's something I'm doing, a box I'm not clicking so that they're not talking.
So were you going? Let's see.
In
There's
the
such
details part of the loop.
There's such a glare on the TV.
So like if you go to
At the very
you go up to the loop top, and then go view details, and then
at the very
scroll
bottom.
down,
Yeah,
it says
submit to green sheet. Yeah, I'd recommend not.
Doesn't do anything.
I'd recommend not going to green sheets through that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've heard sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, like you experienced. So it's just always more stable to go through your dashboard intranet and then going from technology to green sheets. Yeah.
So it's okay, like since I haven't ever done this before,
Yeah.
I could go in and play with it, create something, and no problem so long as I don't submit it, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, just don't submit it. You're welcome to just test it out and see, what works, and if you want to fill out your templates or that kind of a thing. I just wouldn't submit it until it's actually something ready to review, or else we will review it. Yeah. And we're gonna take it back because it probably won't be completed because it's just gonna be a test loop for you. And you're always welcome to label it like this is my test loop and just play around within that one loop.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, I will always encourage you to familiarize yourself with it. And .loop has really come a long way from what it used to be, truthfully. Like, it's gotten a lot better.
So what's the little line there that says click here for early access to the new and improved loops page?
I honestly don't know. There's always something that's trying to be new and improved with .loop, I feel like, so.
And I know they have an app. Is there a lot that you can do on the app? Or?
I have not tried it. I don't know how mobile friendly, truthfully, it is. But it might be good. Might not be. I don't know how it's. I haven't tried it on the mobile version.
Okay.
Yeah. So don't hold me to that. Trying to think. The main things like high points, make sure it's labeled as the address. Once your buyer goes under contract, update it with the address. Always change your statuses. The closing date is really important. And you don't get your DA without having your loop fully approved or and a green sheet fully completed. Those are the two things that you need. You can't have one without the other as far as when it comes to a DA. So some people think, oh, I submitted my loop, it's approved and ready for DA, because that's the next status. Once you get everything done, will go back in and say like, oh, agent, you did a great job. Thank you for all your hard work. You're ready for, your file has been approved. It will then say ready for DA. And then that's when Ryan goes in and pulls everything that says ready for DA, and she'll look at your green sheet and then actually create the DA. But you have to have your green sheet completed for her to do her part. So, yeah. Any other questions, concerns?
So the green sheets,
Mhm.
I'm not ever done it, but
Yeah.
you submit the green sheet. Can you do that while y'all are checking everything?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The green sheet is like a separate thing, but you can't have to have both to get a DA. Lauren teaches green sheets.
She did one yesterday.
Yeah, she
I
does
might
it.
get with her and see.
Typically, this class is right after Lauren's, but I couldn't teach yesterday, so I did it today. Typically, Lauren and I do a green sheets class from, it's normally 10:30 to 11:30, and then 11:30 to 12:30 is the dot loop. And it's every third Thursday typically.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you ever just want to come in for a refresher, you can.
I
You
did
can come
yesterday. It was interesting. But there was
Yeah.
only, two of us.
Yeah. Green sheets it's a good class to take because there's a lot of little information that's good to know whenever you create a green sheet, especially if you haven't done one before. And she can walk you through all of that. But you can always, like, when you're waiting for your loop to be reviewed, that's a great time to go ahead and start submitting or creating your green sheet. And yeah, Lauren can always help you through any questions regarding that.
Let me ask you this. Well, I can ask Lauren's green sheet question. Never mind.
I might be able to help you, but she knows way more than she knows way more. So she'd probably be a better person. So, is that it for everybody? Or any other questions? If you have any questions, you can always email me. My assistant, my compliance, I can give you guys my compliance email. And Mary's also a great reference for anything related to that as well. It's assstcompliance.gt@gmail.com. So, and if you ever have questions regarding loops or a loop that I've kicked back for one of you, just ask me. And like, why did you kick this back? Or like,
What did I do?
yeah, or why is this required? Or why
Are you assigned certain
I'm just
agents or
I'm
just?
Georgetown.
Okay.
So I'm just here for you guys. And then there's someone specifically part-time, like a version of me for Round Rock,
Okay.
just to help kind of balance out the two offices. So you guys are doing great. I know there's a lot of changes that have happened as far as what we require and what we don't. So we always try and keep you guys as updated as possible. Thank you for signing in. And so if you have any questions about like, well, why are we doing this now when we didn't do this before, just ask us. We're happy to help answer any questions you guys have.